Welcome to this bonus episode of the Arctic Crafts podcast. We're going to do the Fiber Friends tag with all the questions. If you haven't been here before, this is not an ordinary podcast episode, so if you want to see what I usually do, just check out my latest episode. It's on the same channel as this one, and there will be another ordinary episode later this week. So, my name is Bente. I'm the dyer behind Arctic Crafts by Bente, and this is...
My name is Tor. You will find me on Twitter under a handle FPL Torino, and you will find me on Instagram as Torino81. And I'm her husband.
Good thing you mentioned that. just so we have that clear. And this is all the questions. So we have some work to do. The first one, how did we meet?
Online dating service.
And I moved in here 6 months later.
So it worked.
Online dating works, people. Was I a knitter when we met?
Oh yes. But I don't believe you were doing a lot of knitting before you moved up here. Not at the scale that you're doing now.
No, my knitting became my lifestyle after I moved here. Mostly because I was too busy to knit a lot before I moved here. What is your favorite thing that I have knit for you? You don't have to say the elephant in the room, the sweater I worked with for years.
Oh yes, of course, that one. And a wide range of socks that I've already used and abused. So
are you trying to tell me you want more socks?
Always.
What is your favorite thing I have knit in general?
Probably should say the sweater you knit for me.
Okay, so it's...
But of course, I loved your... I can't remember the exact name of it, but that gold one that a certain podcaster in the UK liked. Because it was gold. Yes,
that's because Dunderknit.
Yeah.
She actually mentioned one of my sweaters because she loved the color of it. And as you can tell, Severus Snape is always in the background, also when we're doing this.
Probably on the toilet right
now. That's information that's only some need to know.
Uh-oh. That's the door. He shut the door.
Shut the door.
Good.
Yeah.
Good one.
Does it annoy you when I knit in public?
No.
Short answer? No?
My co-workers, fellow politicians, they knit also during meetings, so why should you be an exception to that?
Severus, please. He wants to join us. He wants me to ask him questions as well. What is your favorite fiber festival you've been to?
I've only been to one.
Yeah. So that's an easy answer.
Yeah.
Spring and Tool 2019 in Leeds. Or sorry, not Leeds. What
Grammar School of Leeds, outside of Leeds. Between Leeds and Harrogate, I think.
Do you hate it when I drag you to yarn stores?
As long as there's a good dad parking availability in the neighborhood.
Or a shop that actually interests you in the neighborhood?
I don't go shopping at all, so I wouldn't find a shop that interests me, I think.
What is the coolest thing you've learned about knitting? It's so uncool you can't think of anything?
You put me on the spot there. Cool things about knitting. That knitting is also done by other people than just grandmas in their grandma shares, perhaps. That there's a big diversity in knitting,
yep.
Perhaps.
Have you ever wanted to learn to knit?
No.
I've been trying.
I don't have hand-eye coordination at all. forget about it.
So I would probably have a lot of work to do
Oh,
if
yes.
I tried to teach you how to knit. Does it bother you when I buy yarn or knitting things?
No, not as long as I can use the same amount on gaming.
We had this deal at the beginning because he collects stamps, and whenever he bought some stamps, I was allowed to buy some yarn, and the result is he has far too much stamps and I have far too much yarn.
Let
So-
me also show you guys that I started collecting after I met her. So I didn't use that as a checkup line that she wants to.
If you want to buy yarn, I can buy stamps.
Yeah, if she wants to come home and
You
go
want to
through
come-
my stamp collection, I didn't use that as a checkup line. It's a common checkup line in Norway.
Yeah, you want to come back home and look at my stamp collection.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a joke. But people that actually collect stamps get that all the time. What do you think about my podcasting?
That it's a nice ventilation for you. It helps with some of your issues, I think.
That I
It's
can
a-
talk
it's-
to people,
yeah.
other people than you.
And, well, it's like a modern form of a diary to a certain extent.
Sort of.
Yeah, it's a
But you wouldn't have to do this if I didn't podcast.
it's a mix between a diary and a commercial, I think, for your products. But also you're venting about your personal life.
I'm not venting about you though,
Well,
because you watch my podcast.
perhaps it would increase the amount of views if you did. So you should figure
And
that
now
out.
we're getting into fibers and questions about that.
Uh-oh.
Do you know the different weights of yarn?
Are we talking about
I won't
worsted
I won't-
sports?
Yeah. What's
Lace.
worsted lace? What do you know the
Fingering.
properties of lace? What's
Which is my favorite, by the way, fingering. I love fingering.
That's also called four-ply, by the way.
Okay.
It doesn't sound as much fun as fingering, I guess. Do you know what's the difference between, let's say, lace and worsted?
The amount of yards. The lace is much thinner, so more yards.
This might have something to do with me being a yarn dyer. You
Yeah.
wouldn't know this. You sure?
I'm injured for life.
Yeah, well-
I've stopped using meters, although I'm from Norway. I started using yards for anything now. So
Let's
when you have me
see.
talking in inches instead of centimeters.
Do you have a favorite yarn dyer or yarn in general? You know what to answer about the favorite yarn dyer, I guess.
Well, the correct answer is, of course, you.
Yep. Apart from me, you leave that to me.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on that one.
Do you remember what yarn dyer dyed the last sweater quantity you bought me?
That was Hedgehog, I think.
Hedgehog fibers. Do you have a favorite yarn? Kind of yarn?
That I like to wear.
I probably knit mostly what I knit for you is in
Sports.
fingering.
Fingering.
Both the sweaters and the socks.
Well, I already admitted that I prefer fingering. So
I think I have a half finished worsted sweater. No, I frogged that one. And knit a sweater for my son instead. How much do you think an average skein of indie dyed yarn costs?
somewhere between 18 and 25 euros if it's 100 gram.
Again, because I'm a yarn dyer, you wouldn't know that. You bought me yarn, so you would know that. What yarn would you buy me if I asked? If I just told you buy me some yarn, what would you buy?
Then I ultimately would ask, what do you want?
Instead of just...
Here you have a blank check. Use it.
How many balls of yarn do you think I could sneak into the house without you noticing? That's not an issue in this house, because I don't have to sneak anything into the house without you noticing.
Yeah, and it's your territory, and I don't invade it. So.
What goes through your mind when I get yarn in the mail?
She's having a good mail day.
Happy mail day?
Happy mail
Party
day.
in my mailbox?
Happy wife, happy husband.
What do you want me to knit for you?
Socks.
Socks.
Next.
What thing do you wear the most that I knit for you? Same
Socks.
answer. Socks.
Next.
What do you think of my stash?
Almost as impressive as my stamp collection.
How does knitting help me as a person? You sort of already answered that.
I guess it has a therapy. It's good therapy for you.
It helps my anxiety.
Yeah.
It's kind of
calms you down.
Yep.
Makes you more focused on what you're doing otherwise. So you like knit when we watch TV and TV series. So. And you're a woman, so you can multitask. I couldn't at all. But,
You don't know until I teach you how to knit.
If I was knitting, well, I could use wear in this case. If I wear anything, because it's just it's not a plausible scenario, but I would probably be spending most of my time like this and some cursing and throwing sticks around, knitting perfectly all the way around the room.
How do you explain me being a knitter to other people? That's not an issue in Norway, because in Norway
we
everybody
don't
knits.
talk about other people's personal matter unless
you're breaking down in front of us.
Yeah.
Because we're Norwegians. If you break down in front of me, I would perhaps ask you what the problem was.
Words get around in Norway as well, but we're not in those circles. We don't.
And because everybody knits, as I said, everybody knits, so it doesn't have to explain anything. Do you know the difference between knitting, crochet, spinning, and weaving?
Well, two of those are processes where you create things, yarn. You spin yarn.
Yep.
So you make yarn by spinning. Crochet and knitting are two different techniques where you use different tools.
Yep.
And weaving is also a different technique where you use a completely and very extremely large tool that takes up all the space. So you buy it, you don't remember how big it is, and then when you unpack it and you install it, you understand it's too impractical, and then you
I bought an Ashford Richard Heddle loom, what they call a knitter's loom, and it's practically almost always packed because it's so big. So I have to unpack it and then pack it down again, and it's a lot of work. What do you wish my hobby was if it wasn't knitting?
Football? Yes,
not playing football, I hope.
Selfish goals. Not playing, but playing
Fantasy Premier
League. Get it with me.
Yeah. I tried. What was it called? Hat Trick.
Yeah.
In the beginning, he had to take over because I wasn't interested. What does your family think of my knitting?
I haven't the faintest, and I really don't care.
I knit your mother and your grandmother stuff though. Yeah. And crocheted.
My mother knits as well, but at a whole different level. You're on a whole different level. She's at a very rudimentary level where she just knit blankets and then. Please help me out with the English word for tove.
Felt them.
Yeah, and she felt them.
She knits stuff on large needles and then felts it afterwards.
So I think we've gotten a couple of those in the mail that cats are using as their beds outside.
What do I knit most often?
Probably socks.
That's sort of my go-to project. If I knit something big and I get tired of it, I always cast on a pair of socks. So I have some pairs of socks on the needles. Have you ever watched my podcast?
Most of them, I think. If not all.
He's the one that keeps track of how many subscribers I have.
Yeah, you had 908 yesterday.
Okay. I'm trying to get up to 1,000.
Yes.
By the way.
So if you do that, you will of course have.
I will do lives.
Some kind of collaboration.
I would do live if I reach 1,000 subscribers, because I have to reach 1,000 before I can do lives. And YouTube has started putting ads on everything, even if you don't want them. So the only way to control the amount of ads and where they show up in your podcast is to actually monetize. You don't get a lot of money, but you get to tell YouTube, I only want ads in the beginning and at the end, and people should be able to skip them. So that's another reason why I want to reach 1,000.
And I'll take her out on a date if we do that. So if you want this fair lady to go on a date with a gentleman like me, then subscribe, click the bell below, and all those YouTube things. We're getting a visitor.
Now we are going to explain some knitting acronyms for me. WHIP. What's a WHIP? What's it short for?
Very important project. No,
W. E.
Work in progress.
Work in progress. FO.
Finished object.
Cal.
Collaboration.
KAL.
I'm drawing a blank.
Knit along.
Knit along. Aren't those supposed to be 3 words? Knit along is, well, it's 2 words.
I almost always use
Should be K.
I almost always use mal for make along, because I want the crocheters to know that they can join as well. UFO.
Unfinished objects.
DPN. I don't use those
Something
a lot.
needles.
Something needles. Double pointed needles.
Okay.
We call them strømpepinner in Norwegian, but he wouldn't know what that was either.
So very inefficient murder weapon.
I think you know more English terms in knitting than Norwegian, just because everything I do is in English.
Probably.
Do you know what a progress keeper is?
Yeah, it's the small object that keeps the progress that you
Keeps the progress.
yeah, hence name that you
It's
just
my
you mark where you started off.
I almost always use them as knitting bling. I just decorate my projects with them because I love them, and I make them myself as well.
You can pronounce using them.
If you could set the monthly amount for yarn, what would that be? How much am I allowed? I have to mention that he supports me because I don't earn enough money as a yarn dyer, so this is really important.
Link to the Etsy shop below. No, I don't have a fixed amount. I think the original deal was that if I bought stamps for a certain sum, you should be able to buy knitting equipment and yarn for the exact same amount, but I've stopped buying stamps for a while now. So
I should have stopped buying yarn.
no,
I have more money to spend on yarn because he has stopped buying stamps.
well, let's say €100
A month? That's a sweater quantity, by the way.
Oh.
And now we come to a rather morbid question, but it's on here, so I'm going to ask you, what would you do with my stash if I died?
Difficult to say because I wouldn't know how I would cope at all. So
With me dying, you mean?
Yeah, I had to revert to eating a lot of frozen pizzas. Probably. Well, I know that I would. Let's say it's a sudden death, and this is quite morbid, as you say. Then you probably would have. I would have to close the shop somehow.
And you would have a lot of
And
undyed
announce
yarn
it.
on your hands?
I suspect you have a couple of friends that would help me with cleaning out.
Let's
stuff.
say you have the address, you have Sue's address. Just pack all the stuff in boxes and send it to Sue.
Yeah.
That's the easy answer.
Just get a container and get it across the ocean.
But I'm not planning on dying anytime soon. So.
No, not me either.
What are your hobbies?
How much time do I have?
We already talked about your stamp collecting.
Okay, well, that hobby is in the fridge right now. I haven't bought stamps in ages and haven't looked at them. Well, anything sports, watching any type of sports.
That's not a hobby though.
Yeah, interest, I guess.
But FPL could be considered a hobby.
Yeah.
And Travian.
With FPL, it's Fantasy Premier League, but I also play Fantasy Eliteserien, which is the Norwegian version. The current Euro version, Allsvenskan, which is the Swedish one. I tend to, when I find something that I'm interested in, I tend to go all in and broaden every single horizon. So there's a reason why I know every single capital on Earth. I get really focused when there's a spark of interest in something, and I get to learn a lot about it, and then that's why Fantasy Premier League is such a big part of my daily life, because it requires a lot of time. And gaming in general, I play a lot of games. I'm a retro gamer, so I play games that I played in the 90s. I still play them today. So before we had this session, I played Championship Manager 93, 94, 28-year-old game. And the reason why I play that and not the 2021 version of it is because it's too complicated for me. I like to finish off a season at a time in one day and not play 2 matches in a day.
And there's only 3 questions left, so you can actually get back to your gaming in just a few moments. Mm-hmm. The next question you already answered. How many podcast subscribers do you think I have? And you knew that? Mm-hmm. What's your favorite podcast? Doesn't have to be knitting, I think. It doesn't say anything about it has to be knitting.
Well, I need to have a shout out to FPL. Let's talk FPL. Andy from Ireland. Well, he's from England originally, but he lives in Ireland. So he's one of my favorite podcasters. If you move away from those kind of things into more, music-related things, which is another common interest we have, it is people like Chase Cameron and Tank the Roadie and Julian Tank the Tech, yeah, and Julian Allen
and Nate Mears
from Canada, which is a hilarious duo.
They smoke a lot of weed.
They are never sober during their podcasts.
They always smoke weed.
Yeah.
Before they record,
and
during the recordings, and
so if you have a very anti stance on pot, you probably shouldn't watch that channel.
But if we have to go with knitting podcasts, do you have a favorite knitting podcast?
I think the one that I watch with you. Well, there are 2 I watch with you. One is Corner of Craft, Anna, and the other one is what's that lady from Kent called again? What's her name?
Little Drops of Wonderful.
Little Drops of Wonderful, yeah. And sometimes Bakery Bears as well.
But you're mostly interested in his Walking the Moors, Walking the Dales series.
Yeah, we're both Anglophiles, so we've been to
that area in England. Yeah. So
we've been to a lot of places in England, but I think I've been to the Yorkshire Moors 4 or 5 times. Stayed 3 times in York. So I like that part of England. I do.
There's only one more question. How much do you think my stash is worth? And then we'll keep my shop inventory
out of it.
Because that's not my stash. Because I'm hopefully going to sell that, so it's not my stash.
I'm guessing that it probably is a substantial 5-digit amount in Norwegian kroner, which makes it a 4-digit amount in euros, and dollars if you use that instead. So let's say somewhere around 1,500 euros. That's about
I'm not
20,000.
I'm not
That's about $2,000.
I'm not sure how many skeins I have myself, so your guess is as good as mine. So that's it for the questions, and I think we don't have anything more to add. And just a tiny bit of admin from me. My next podcast episode will be uploaded on Friday, and that's going to be a normal episode where I talk about whips, FOs, and shameless self-promotion. And there won't be a lot of that this week because I haven't dyed almost anything. So, but that's on Friday, and if you're lucky, this guy might show up again. So nice to see you again, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.
Cheerio.